undefeated champ, title holder in 2 divisions. Suddenly, everything else crashes down. Ilia Topuria's empire, fights, fame, fortune, may be about to fracture. His wife reportedly filed for divorce and is demanding up to half his assets. Tonight we dig into what could Topuria lose? How might this shake his legacy, his paycheck, and his motivation? Strap in. This one hits harder than any punch. Ilia Topuria wasn't supposed to be here. Not in headlines about a divorce, not in articles dissecting his financial future, not in the middle of a personal storm that could cost him almost as much as any fight he's ever taken. Just months ago, he stood as one of the most dominant champions in the sport, a man undefeated, unbothered, and rapidly becoming one of the UFC's most bankable stars. His rise had been meteoric. Belts, endorsements, global fan bases, and an aura that made people believe he was entering his prime with 0 cracks in the armor. But that illusion shattered fast. It started with whispers, fans noticing missing family posts, fewer photos with his wife Georgina Bedell, a sudden drop-off in affectionate captions. MMA fans are detectives by nature, and the speculation burned quietly until the moment everything exploded. Reports confirming that Georgina had filed for divorce and was allegedly seeking up to half of Topuria's assets. 50%, half, a potential split that could shake the personal, financial, and competitive foundation of one of MMA's biggest rising stars. And the timing made it all even more shocking. Topuria was at the peak of his earning power. The champion glow, sponsor rush, pay-per-view percentages, international tours, all of it raising his value higher than ever. A divorce now isn't just painful, it's strategic. It hits when the pot is largest, when the stakes are highest, when the financial records are finally worth cutting into. And as the news spread, fans began asking the same question. How much is he about to lose? The truth is brutal. Depending on how assets were structured and where the filings took place, Topuria could lose millions. Property, savings, investments, even future fight earnings if categorized as marital assets. And the emotional toll, that's something no accountant can calculate. The champion who once walked into the cage with absolute certainty now enters a courtroom where every move, every asset, every decision is scrutinized. And worst of all, this isn't a battle he can win with punches. A storm was forming, and Ilia Topuria was standing right in the center of it. Divorces are rarely simple. But divorcing a global sports icon? That's a different weight class entirely. Reports surrounding Ilia Topuria's split suggest that his wife isn't just walking away, she's demanding half of everything. Not half of something, half of all things. And when you look at what everything means in Topuria's world, the numbers get suffocating. Let's break it down. Topuria's net worth has skyrocketed in the last 2 years. Championship fights, pay-per-view shares, bonuses, sponsorship deals with luxury brands, appearance fees, international endorsements. His income didn't just grow, it exploded. Winning the belt isn't just a sports accomplishment, it's a business jackpot, and that jackpot may now be split right down the middle. According to reports, the divorce filing includes a claim over shared assets, which could cover real estate purchases across Spain and Georgia, vehicles and luxury acquisitions, bank accounts and investment portfolios, earnings accumulated during the marriage, potential revenue from future fights depending on the legal jurisdiction. Yes, future earnings. If categorized as community property, upcoming fight purses may be subject to the split, meaning every punch he throws from here on out could be partially hers. That's not just financial pressure, that's psychological weight. There's also the matter of child support. The couple reportedly share 2 children, which adds an entirely separate layer of financial obligation. Long-term support payments, educational costs, health care, lifestyle maintenance, all scaled to the income of a world champion. As this news spread, fans began asking the uncomfortable but inevitable question. What does this do to Topuria's motivation? Because it's one thing to fight for legacy. It's another to fight while losing half your kingdom. The darkest irony? Every time Topuria succeeds financially, the size of the potential settlement increases. Every victory adds to the pot. Every endorsement sweetens the deal. He's in the rare position of making too much money at the worst possible moment. This isn't a divorce, it's a financial war. And Topuria is heading into it with his fortune, his future, and possibly his focus on the line. In every divorce, timing tells a story. And in this one, timing screams. The reported split began circulating not long after Topuria became one of the UFC's hottest assets. A champion on a meteoric rise, fresh off massive victories, and entering negotiations for even bigger fights. Think about that. When a fighter's star is at its brightest, their value is at its highest. Their earnings spike, their negotiation leverage multiplies, and their brand power becomes unstoppable. That's exactly the moment Ilia Topuria was in, until the divorce filing hit. And that timing? It wasn't coincidence. It was impact. Because right now, Ilia Topuria is not just a fighter. He's an empire, a brand, a revenue machine. And when an empire fractures mid-growth, the damage is doubled. This isn't like losing half your wealth when you're retired or stable. This is losing it during your peak financial explosion. Legal experts point out that the earlier a divorce happens in a champion's career, the smaller the settlement usually is. But after major title wins, after global endorsements, after mainstream fame, that's when divorce becomes financially catastrophic. And then comes the mental aspect. Fight camps demand absolute clarity. Distraction is the hidden opponent that ruins champions. And right now, Topuria is dealing with potential court dates, lawyers dissecting his income, social media drama, public judgment, custody considerations, asset valuation, emotional fallout. If even one of those things enters the gym with him, it changes everything. Focus splits, discipline cracks, confidence wavers. And fighters know this more than fans. Many legends have spoken about how personal stress ruins performance. Divorces, lawsuits, addictions, betrayals. The octagon demands warriors, not wounded men. Topuria built his reputation on composure. Cool, clinical, unbreakable. But this is the kind of test that breaks even the calmest champions. Not physically, emotionally. You can defend a punch. You can't defend a heartbreak timed with a financial ambush. His career momentum was a rocket, but right now, that rocket has turbulence. And if he doesn't stabilize fast, the next fight won't be against a contender. It'll be against himself. In every high-profile divorce, there's one brutal truth. Money can be rebuilt. Reputations can be repaired. But custody battles leave scars that never fade. And for Ilia Topuria, this may become the most emotionally explosive part of the entire split. Public information confirms the couple share 2 children. And that single detail changes the entire trajectory of the divorce. Because custody doesn't revolve around belts or fame. It revolves around stability, availability, and the best interest of the child. And for a world champion who travels, trains, and fights across continents, that alone becomes a vulnerability. This is where things get darker. When children are involved, courts often examine lifestyle, work hours, and the nature of the parents' careers. Topuria's life is extreme. Irregular schedules, violent work environment, travel-heavy obligations, unpredictable recovery periods, and the constant physical risks of fighting. To a family court, that may not look like an ideal foundation for primary custody, no matter how devoted he is as a father. And make no mistake, custody rulings influence financial rulings. The more custody the ex-spouse holds, the more child support increases, and the more ongoing financial obligations stack up. Suddenly, the divorce isn't just a one-time settlement. It becomes a monthly drain shaped by every punch he absorbs, every payday he cashes. And then there's the image war. Fighters thrive on persona, invincible, disciplined, structured, composed. But a divorce involving children doesn't stay private. Rumors leak. Misinterpretations spread. Social media weaponizes small moments. Fans speculate. Critics pounce. Every decision, every public sighting, every ambiguous quote becomes part of the narrative of what really happened. And in the fight game, image isn't a luxury. It's currency. A champion's marketability affects sponsorships, pay-per-view roles, event placement, even bargaining leverage with the UFC. Sponsors love the image of a proud family man, not a front-page divorce headline. And while Topuria has never been a controversy-driven athlete, this situation forces him into a spotlight he never wanted. His quiet, composed persona now risks being overshadowed by legal drama he didn't choose. The public always pretends to care about the truth, but the truth rarely trends. Sensation does. And through all of this, the unspoken weight is the relationship with his children. Training camps, fight weeks, media tours. They already take fighters away from family. But now every day away fuels speculation. Every smile during training footage is dissected. Is he distracted? Is he coping? Is he forcing himself through it? The cruel irony is simple. The champion known for bulletproof focus is now facing the one opponent he cannot out-train. The slow, emotional unraveling of family life under a global microscope. To the public, 50% of assets sounds dramatic but vague. What does that actually mean in Ilia Topuria's financial universe? The answer is harsher than most fans realize because fighters do not have normal income structures. Athletes at the championship level often receive a mix of purses, bonuses, win pay, pay-per-view percentages, sponsorship revenue, appearance fees, and international brand partnerships. All of this becomes subject to review the moment divorce proceedings begin. In most jurisdictions, particularly Spain, where Topuria has strong residency ties, assets obtained during the marriage fall under community property. That includes everything acquired or earned while legally married. It doesn't matter whether it's a house, a car, a bank account, or a championship purse earned inside the cage. And based on reporting, that's exactly the category this divorce is likely to fall into, meaning half isn't speculation. It's the baseline. Here's where the real pressure comes in. Liquid assets versus long-term assets. Fighters often reinvest earnings into property, training facilities, family homes, or long-term investments. Liquid cash is less common, so splitting assets may force sales, refinancing, or division of property portfolios, each of which reduces long-term security. Add legal fees, tax implications, and restructuring costs, and the total financial damage often exceeds the actual percentage lost. Then comes the elephant in the room: future income exposure. If any contracts or negotiations were initiated during the marriage, endorsements, multi-fight deals, pre-fight advances, the ex-spouse may claim entitlement to a portion of the revenue tied to those deals. Even future UFC paydays can be considered partially marital earnings if they were negotiated prior to the legal split. It gets even more complicated when you factor in brand value. A fighter's image is a monetizable asset, and marital contributions to image building are considered in some legal systems, meaning support provided by the spouse during rise to fame years, child raising, logistics, home stability can legally justify higher compensation. This is why divorcing at the peak of your career is financially devastating. Every single thing in your life is worth more, and therefore half becomes more. The timing makes the hit harder, and through it all, Ilia has to continue fighting, continue training, continue selling pay-per-views, continue being the polished star the UFC needs. But it's hard to juggle the cage and the courtroom at the same time. And historically, fighters who attempt both rarely perform at their best. This divorce isn't just a split, it's a restructuring of Topuria's entire empire, one legal document at a time. In combat sports, everyone talks about power, technique, game plans, footwork, but the quiet truth is that the mind is the real battleground. And right now, Ilia Topuria's mental landscape looks like a demolition zone. Winning championships demands monastic focus. Every camp is a psychological science. Diet, discipline, sacrifice, isolation, repetition. But divorce shatters all of that. Suddenly, fighters aren't thinking about sparring partners, they're thinking about lawyers. They're not studying opponent footage, they're reading custody clauses. The emotional bandwidth collapses. And historically, very few fighters survive this moment unscathed. Look at the biggest champions who went through divorces mid-career. Nearly all of them suffered major performance drops. Why? Because heartache doesn't leave when the bell rings. Stress doesn't pause between rounds. A fractured home bleeds into strategy, reactions, conditioning, even sleep. And recovery from emotional strain is slower than recovery from bruises. Topuria faces the exact same psychological storm. His privacy is gone. His personal life has become a public debate. Fans aren't discussing his jab or footwork. They're discussing custody and settlement percentages. And every headline chips away at the mental fortress he built during his rise. Even if he tries to ignore it, it reaches him through gym conversations, media questions, social comments, and the unavoidable reality of dealing with the court system. Then comes the performance equation. Fighting at the elite level requires presence, a razor-sharp state where every strike, every instinct, every reaction is automatic. Emotional turmoil kills that presence. A single lapse in focus can cost a fighter their title, their record, or their health. And right now, Ilia Topuria is fighting two battles with one mind. On top of that, there's the pressure of expectations. He isn't just a good fighter, he's a champion. Champions aren't allowed to look shaken. They're not allowed to lose momentum. The UFC machine depends on their image. Confident, charismatic, unstoppable. But behind the cameras, he's dealing with a part of life that feels heavier than any opponent. And that creates resentment. Pressure turns inward. Fighters begin questioning themselves. Can I handle this? Am I slipping? Can I still dominate when my life is falling apart? This self-doubt, even in small doses, becomes a psychological poison. The worst part? He still has to fight. The cage isn't going anywhere, and the division will not pause. Contenders keep training. Rankings keep shifting. The UFC clock keeps ticking. This moment, right now, may define whether Ilia Topuria becomes a long-term legend, or a champion who burned bright but couldn't weather the storm outside the cage. Money is a strange weapon in combat sports. For some fighters, it fuels hunger. For others, it kills it. And right now, Ilia Topuria is in the exact financial danger zone that ruins champions. Sudden wealth, followed by sudden loss. It's the perfect psychological whiplash. One moment, he's sitting at the top of the world, undefeated, champion, wealthy, adored. The next, half of everything he built might be ripped away. That emotional contradiction isn't just stressful. It creates a motivation crisis. Because here's the truth no fighter admits publicly. When your financial empire starts shaking, you don't train harder. You train distracted. And when you earn millions, then watch millions vanish into legal procedures, settlements, child support, and asset division. Your relationship with money changes. Money stops feeling like a reward. It starts feeling like a fight you're losing. But there's another layer here. Fighters who lose large chunks of wealth often make dangerous career decisions to recover it. Taking fights too soon, accepting unfavorable contracts, fighting injured, saying yes to opponents they aren't stylistically ready for. Because every payday looks like a lifeline. Every fight looks like a financial reboot. And this isn't speculation. History supports it. Dozens of champions have stepped into the cage too early after personal or financial collapse, chasing the wrong payday at the worst time. Some recovered, most did not. Topuria now stands on that razor's edge. The fans still believe he's unstoppable. The UFC still markets him like a superstar. But behind the curtain, he might be balancing stress, legal uncertainty, custody arrangements, and financial instability all at once. And that's not the foundation of a focused, dangerous, locked-in champion. To survive this chapter, he can't just rely on talent. He has to preserve motivation without being consumed by the fear of losing more. He has to fight without fighting for the money. Because when a fighter's financial fear becomes their primary drive, their technique suffers, their patience evaporates, and their decision-making becomes reckless. And this divorce? It's the kind that shakes motivation at its core. Because no matter how many millions come from future fights, half of everything will still be gone. Every champion facing personal destruction walks toward one of three destinies, and Ilia Topuria's next moves will decide which path becomes his legacy. The first path is redemption. It's the comeback storyline fans crave. The champion who survives heartbreak, financial upheaval, and public pressure, then returns stronger, more focused, more dangerous than ever. This path requires discipline, emotional maturity, and the ability to rebuild life outside the cage before returning inside it. Fighters who take this route often become legends, not just for their skills, but for their resilience. The second path is collapse, and it's more common than fans realize. When a fighter's emotional foundation crumbles, performances follow. A distracted camp leads to sloppy sparring. Sloppy sparring leads to fear. Fear leads to hesitation in in the cage, and hesitation is the death of a fighter's career. Many champions have fallen this exact way. A single personal crisis leading to a spiral of losses, injuries, and confidence breakdowns. For Topuria, this is the most dangerous path because it transforms the divorce from a legal problem into a career-ending one. The third path is reinvention. Some fighters respond to personal chaos by reshaping everything. New team, new management, new home base, new identity. Reinvention can resurrect a career, but it's also volatile. Too much change too quickly can destabilize a fighter even further. But if done correctly, reinvention becomes evolution, a psychological transformation that fuels growth. Right now, Topuria is standing at the crossroads. The divorce itself isn't what determines which path he takes. What determines it is how he reacts to the noise, the pressure, the financial fear, and the public spotlight. Champions aren't built in perfect lives, they're built in chaos. But even legends can stumble when chaos hits too close to home. The truth is simple. Ilia Topuria is fighting two wars, one in the cage and one in his life. And only one of those wars is governed by rules. The UFC machine doesn't slow down for anyone, not even champions. And whether they admit it publicly or not, the organization will make strategic decisions based on Topuria's instability. Because in the UFC's eyes, a distracted champion is a risky investment. A delayed champion is lost revenue. A compromised champion complicates matchmaking, pay-per-view plans, and promotional arcs. The UFC thrives on momentum, public energy, undefeated streaks, crowd magnetism. This divorce punches a hole straight through that momentum. If Topuria becomes inconsistent, unreachable, or mentally scattered, the UFC may pivot faster than fans expect. Interim titles, big promotional pushes for rising contenders, shifts in marketing focus. And there's another silent threat. Fighters smell weakness. The division is watching closely. Every contender sees opportunity. Personal chaos creates career openings because challengers know a distracted champion can be dethroned. They ramp up camps, push for title shots, talk louder in interviews. The sharks start circling. Meanwhile, the UFC's business model forces quick decisions. They can't wait a year for a champion to emotionally recover. They will move on. And if Topuria takes too long to stabilize his life outside the cage, he may return to a division that has already moved past him. But this is where things get interesting. Personal turmoil has made legends before. Fighters with everything to lose often fight with a level of desperation that becomes historic. The UFC doesn't mind chaos, as long as it generates compelling storylines. And Topuria's situation? It's the kind that built entire fight eras. Pressure can break fighters, or forge them. Right now, the UFC is waiting to see which version of Ilia Topuria walks out next, the wounded champion or the renewed monster.